The compact sedan segment in India is packed to the brim with cars like the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz, the Volkswagen Vento, the Skoda Rapid, and of course, the popularity contest winners like the Honda City. Last year, Hyundai updated the Verna, giving it a whole bunch of new tech, and it quickly regained its benchmark status. And now, a new car will challenge the Verna for its crown: the Toyota Yaris. The Yaris is Toyota's first attempt at making a compact sedan in India, and in terms of the way it looks, it does not disappoint. It has a premium face, a nice raised rear that reminds us in many ways of the Corolla, and enough trinkets to keep one occupied. You get projector headlamps, LED daytime running lights, LED tail lamps, etc. And that signature Toyota front end looks quite distinct too. But there is a chink in its armor. And no, it's not those 15-inch small alloy wheels, it's the fact that the Yaris physically looks smaller than it is. Comparing it to the Verna, the Yaris is just 15 mm shorter in terms of length, but with rounded edges, as we mentioned earlier. To the common man, it looks much smaller. Incidentally, the Yaris is just 1 mm narrower, but 20 mm shorter in terms of height. The Verna, on the other hand, looks larger than it is. With its wider grille, more aggressive face, and those yummy 16-inch two-tone diamond-cut wheels, it checks off all the right boxes. Compared to the Yaris, it also has a more balanced design of the two, and according to me, also the one that looks more expensive than it actually is, especially if you have this top spec version with the sunroof. Though in the minds of most the diesel is a more popular engine, the compact sedan category is one of those rare few that swings more to the petrol side. In fact, 70% of the cars sold in this category are petrol. It is no wonder then that Toyota has launched the Yaris only with a petrol engine. But when it comes to petrol engines in this segment, the Verna is apex predator. The 1.6 litre engine under the hood makes 121 bhp of peak power, making it the most powerful engine in the category, and it pulls well. Mated with a 6-speed gearbox, the engine revs freely, and even though it does get slightly vibey around the top end, it gets up to 3-digit speeds really quickly while still having in-gear acceleration when you need it. Now compared to the Verna, the Yaris has a slightly smaller 1.5 litre engine. It is still a 4-cylinder though, and expectedly it is lower on horsepower as compared to the Verna, lower on torque, and also lower in terms of fuel economy. But while the Verna feels great to drive on the road because it is more powerful on paper, the Yaris feels great to drive on the road because it is a very free revving engine. Red line is all the way to 6,500 RPM, but that isn't really the point of this car. You aren't going to drive this car like it's on a racetrack all the time. You aren't going to rev the pants off it. This car is meant to be driven sedately, comfortably, almost like a gentleman. And in terms of that, it is actually nicer to drive than the Verna because this engine is smoother. NVH levels are considerably lower than the Verna, and that's what these are all about. Comfort, comfort, and more comfort. And since it's all about comfort, it's all about how nice that interior feels. Starting with the Yaris, like a typical Toyota, everything is simple and looks uncluttered. The interior color is beige, as with most of the cars in the segment, while the dashboard gets a black treatment with a very cool faux leather stitching mold line. The central console is flanked with brushed silver panels, while the actual console is deep gloss black. And while it does get a nice set of plastics all around, it really does lose out big when it comes to infotainment. The Yaris gets no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, and that is a big no-no when it comes to today's connected age. On the other hand, the Verna gets a ton of features over the Yaris. A larger and frankly nicer screen, Apple CarPlay, inbuilt navigation, Android Auto, a sunroof, and the most important feature on any car in this segment, cooled seats. Particularly useful when temperatures outside are 45 degrees. The Verna is also slightly better built too, and with a brownish shade to the interior, it also offers a slightly fresher look. And now for a change, I'm actually going to give up that front driver's seat to a colleague and see how it feels in the back, a place where most buyers of this segment usually end up in any case. So first, the Verna. Now, I would rather be in the front seat in this particular car because it's about 45 degrees outside and it does have the cooling seats like I mentioned earlier, but in all fairness, the rear is actually nice too. It's got very well contoured seats. The backrest is quite nice, although a little under thigh support, a little more under thigh support, and a little more upright seating would be nicer, especially if you're going to have a longer distance to travel. This does feel a little sunk in. Great for the city though. It does have leather interior all around, as I mentioned, and again, because it does have a sunroof, the cabin does feel generally airier. Now, as compared to the Verna, the Yaris is actually 15 mm shorter overall, but wheelbase wise, it's actually 50 mm shorter, and that translates to less leg space in the rear, and it is a little more cramped. But the advantage the Yaris offers, you sit slightly higher, which means you have a less sort of claustrophobic feeling of the cabin because you have a bigger window too, and it is a more natural seating position, so it does feel more comfortable. Now, in terms of interiors, the top of the line spec does get leather. This one gets cloth, and even the cloth is actually nicer in terms of finish. It's softer, more plush, and the Yaris does genuinely feel like a nice, comfortable car at the rear. And of course, you do get this really cool AC system on the roof, which sort of flows air through, and because it's on the top, it means AC for everybody, as compared to the Verna, which has the vents on the bottom, which means sometimes if you're sitting by the window, you might not get that airflow as well as this system will give you. Passenger comfort also has a lot to do with the way the car rides, and both the Verna and the Yaris have a chassis setup that leans more towards comfort rather than handling prowess. Both have a considerable amount of body roll, and both feel a little uncomfortable while being handled by the scruff of their neck. However, in a battle of equals, the Yaris does have that typically Japanese sense of confidence hidden underneath that soft chassis. While most cars in the segment offer airbags on all variants, the Hyundai Verna offers 2 as standard and 6 on the top spec variants. The Yaris though is the new benchmark when it comes to safety in this segment. Not only do you get 7 airbags across all variants, you also get disc brakes on all 4 wheels too. And the difference is very obvious. The Yaris does showcase a level of maturity under hard braking, the likes of cars many segments above do. But is it enough to put the Yaris on top of the food chain in this segment? Not really. The Verna does trump it with more space, better performance, better features, more fuel economy, and all of that while still beating the Yaris on price by being almost 1.5 lakh rupees cheaper. It is a no contest then. While the Yaris is a very impressive car, especially for passengers seated at the rear, as a product, the Verna is still the king of the hill.